What's up, guys and girls, I guess. It's midnight on a Sunday, and we are here working on a Mazak. So this machine had very little coolant pressure, and it would kind of sputter. And trying to figure out what the deal was. We spent the last 3 hours or so ripping and tearing, doing some diagnostic work. So we went through, took the whole pump head apart, cleaned it, and made sure everything was sealed, everything was put back together. It's a 3-stage Grundfos style pump, so they should make tons of flow, tons of pressure. Everything was good there. We unhooked the feed line, which is the right one that goes to our coolant distribution block, and turned the pump on, and we had tons of flow, tons of pressure. Everything was good there, so we went down the line. From there, there's a line, this kind of orangish line right here, this top guy. Unhooked it there. Great pressure, great flow. And then the next one is this braided line here that runs down, and the way that it actually goes into the casting and the turret, so this whole side of the turret has to come off. There's a stainless steel cover that has to come off before the side cover can come off, because it's actually a wear surface for the way slides. So let me put the light up here so I can kind of point around here. I need like a laser pointer or some sort of a stick to point at things. Here we go. I got a extra piece of conduit here. So there's a way wiper that goes right here. And then there's a stainless steel wear surface that basically sits, it's actually right here. So this sits like this, and when it slides back and forth, it wears on this surface rather than the cast iron of the actual turret X-axis assembly. So these bolts over here on this far side are actually behind this panel, and there are a bunch of holes on the side of this panel, so you can access those bolts, not only for the cover itself. So this cover, when it goes on like this, there's 3 here on the front and 3 on the back. The 3 on the back are real easy because they're right here. The ones on the front, not so much. One of them was actually stripped. We had to get the old impact hammer driver out, get a hammer back there, and we'll go around to the front. You can kind of see some of the other stuff. Oops, maybe I should grab the flashlight. I'm trying not to get dizzy, guys. I've had a lot of trips back and forth from the back to the front of the machine. So this is another pump. These are actually for the other Mazak over here, but that's the same style of pump that we have in both. And so if you've got it a 620, 625, I think the 4 series is probably the same. So if you look on this one, there is, put the light down here so we can kind of see what we're doing. We lost our horizontal surfaces. There we go. So this cover here, there's a bolt there and a bolt there. That whole thing pops off. There's a bolt all the way up top for that side cover that I showed you a second ago. And then on this side, you can actually see the access holes behind that to get to the bolts that are essentially on this side. So you have to go through the back side to take those out. And let me move a couple things here. Luckily, we already had this machine apart. Oops, things are falling down. We already had this cover off this side of the machine, right? So that cover is off, and if you, let me see if I can stick the camera down here. So those are the back sides of those access holes. So you have to reach down through this little opening to get an Allen wrench, 2 different Allen wrenches, a 4 and a 6, down there. 1 to take the stainless guard off, 2 to take the casting piece off. And then you can access all that. So after a little bit of discovery and exploration here, we've found out that The way that Mazak has these set up, they're pretty versatile, really. It's just a pain to get to anything. This light needs to find a home here. There we go. So this right here, this fitting, that's a pipe plug, and that's a pipe plug. And there is a drilled hole that goes all the way down the length, all the way to here. And this is coolant, and this is air. And there's a plug on the side as well, so when they drilled down, they had to put a plug in there. So, and then from here, it's probably drilled from the bottom. Yep, there's a pipe plug down here. It's drilled up, and then it's drilled back behind this cover. This is the hydraulic manifold and the coolant manifold for the actual turret. So if you pull this off, there's a bunch of passageways behind here for coolant and hydraulic fluid for unlocking and locking the turret. And all of that essentially flows back to the back side of this. And that was the massive, massive pain in the butt to get to. And, you know, obviously they had to make that side cover removable, because if the belt goes bad, so if you look at this one, you can see there's a belt that runs the turret and the live tooling, and that one still has the cover on. So you can see there's a stainless steel cover. Put the light up here. So there's this stainless steel cover here, right there, and then that's the casting. So we got that in the hot tank right now. But if you toss a belt on this thing, it is not an easy thing to go through and have to fix. So that being said, we got it all apart. And the coolant line, let me put the light back up here. So that's the coolant line right there that runs up to essentially the back of that pipe plug that I showed you guys a second ago. And if you look, and I can't show you guys, let me get in here. There we go. So that's the back side, right? So we've got a filter. That's actually a check valve. Check valve, and there's another check valve next to that for coolant. That hooks up to this coolant line, which goes back up all the way up to our manifold. And thought to myself, you know what, most of these machines, if they have some sort of a check valve or some sort of a one-way valve, filter, anything like that, it's going to be down here, right? It's going to be down where all the manifolds are, somewhere where it's easily accessible. But no, Mazak had to make it extremely difficult. So pulled it apart, put it in the vise, and lo and behold, cracked it apart. Completely full of chips. So there's no way that this thing was going to flow hardly anything, and it didn't. There was really no, yeah, there's no coolant that's going to go through this, probably at all. And on these machines, there's two different M codes. There's an air blast, or an air blast on the tool, and a coolant on the tool. But when you activate an M8 code for coolant, it does both. So there was actually coolant and air getting blown down that side channel into the turret. So we were getting like real sputtery air and coolant into the tooling, which if you're cutting stainless or something like that, or something hard, Inconel, titanium, you want to make sure that you have, well, there's a beard. You want to make sure you have really good coolant coverage, right? And this thing was basically so bad that it couldn't even lubricate like a tap that was on a live tooling holder. It could barely arc the coolant out to, you know, our roughers and finishers. So if we had, you know, this tool going, our rougher, our diamond rougher, it would kind of just peter off. Not a great deal. Same thing with cutoff. If we were running our big grooving cutoff tool, the coolant just kind of dribbled out. And these also have way blasters, I guess. So coming out of, there's orifice plugs along the bottom, and they actually will blast out of little jets to try and keep the swarf off the ways, which is great if you actually have coolant flow. So there's also some that run down this back channel to keep swarf from building up back there. there's coolant and air basically everywhere in this cabinet that you can add on. There's ones up on top of the spindle, there's ones back here, there's ones back there, there's one here. You know, there's additional ports on the side of the turret manifold here. So there's a lot of options, but if you have a one-way valve or a check valve or a filter that's clogged up, well, that's not really going to help you. So, and I understand why they did it here, because you've got all these small drilled passageways that have to go through this casting and up and around and make some pretty tight bends. But, you know, why they didn't put an actual coolant filter on the machine, especially a machine at this level, you know, is kind of stupid. You know, you've got a twin spindle live tool, sliding head, basically a giant Swiss machine, and you don't have a way to filter your coolant. That's, you know, that's $100 fix. You know, and even we'll walk over here. I am absolutely covered in crap from digging through these machines. These machines came out of Genie, running production parts. So they saw a lot of hours all the time, 24/7, and they did not get taken care of at all. So we're trying to kind of go through them, clean them up. We found so many chips and just swarf packed into places that it's a long time to to get it to, you know, I even got stuff all over my face. It's going to take a while to get those machines back up and running. So this is on the back of our big Aero 2000 here. So we've got a main in from our coolant pump. So we've got our big 500 or 750 PSI coolant pump that runs into here. And then we have our main coolant, which is this guy right here. And then we've got our another filter for our through spindle coolant. So all of these have, I think they're 25 micron filters, which is plenty enough for this application. I think there's a 25 in this one and a 10 micron in this one for through spindle. So it keeps the coupling all nice and clean. But you would think on, you know, I paid $1,000 for this machine, and brand new, it was probably half the price of those Mazaks. So kicking stuff. You would think that they would include something like that to, you know, keep chips out of things. So we're going to go through and, unfortunately, probably have to remove all 4 of the one-way or the check valves in each turret on each machine. So we've got one in this turret, one in that turret, and then in the other one, this one still needs a power supply, but same thing, that turret and that turret. This one also needs a turret sensor, turret clamp sensor, but now that I know how to take that one apart and get to it, let me go around the back again, I can actually get to, it's funny, I wonder if either of these machines made parts for this because they're about the same same vintage. And oh, I lost my light. So be it. Anyways, all of the sensors are now easily accessible through the side rather than trying to go through the back. So if anyone else has a 620, 625, 420, 425 multiplex, that might be some helpful information. But I think we're going to call it a night for tonight. I'm going to probably get, so I can keep the hose the same length as it was, I'll go get some pipe fittings tomorrow at the hardware store, get 4 of them, so I've got already on hand. We'll delete this particular little check valve here. We really don't need check valves in what we do. We can turn the coolant on a little bit earlier and it'll be fine. Worst case, I'll get some big check valves and put them down here just in case. But we'll go on Amazon or something and try to find some like the sediment type canister filters, figure out a nice spot to mount them, maybe on the side of the conveyor or something. Have some new lines made that'll run up to them and down, and hopefully won't have this problem again. So this is one of those machines we want to eventually have ran lights out. So we've got our big LNS bar feeder, and you know, it'd be nice to have this thing just run and not have to worry about, you know, running out of coolant in the middle of the night, coming in the next morning, and you've got a machine that's not necessarily melted down, but you would basically scrub all of your tooling to death. And luckily we're running water-based coolant rather than like Swiss oil, so it wouldn't necessarily catch on fire. But if we were running, you know, a 2-inch stainless bar like we are right now, and it kept running and running and running and running and running without any kind of tool breakage detection or anything like that, which we could program in. But, you know, best case scenario, if we don't use that and we broke a tool because we lacked coolant, it would be a bad situation. So anyways, I'm going to probably call it a night here and throw this up on YouTube. And tomorrow we'll get this thing hopefully back together so we can keep running parts. All right, everybody, have a good night. Talk to you later.